Hey there and welcome. I'm Ann, your local real estate expert serving Ann Arbor and Washtenaw County. If you're thinking about making the move to Ann Arbor and you're caught in the dilemma of deciding whether to rent or buy, you're certainly not alone. Ann Arbor is one of Michigan's most dynamic cities, home to the University of Michigan, a vibrant tech scene, and a wide array of cultural attractions. With so many opportunities in the area, the real estate market can sometimes feel overwhelming. In this script, I'll walk you through a detailed analysis covering average rent prices, mortgage rates, estimated home values, and the impact of local market trends, so you can make the most informed decision about whether you should rent or buy a home in Ann Arbor. By the end, you'll have a more comprehensive understanding of the financial, personal, and market-driven factors that go into making this choice, and hopefully you'll feel more confident about whichever path you decide to take. Ann Arbor is often described as a small, big city, with a population hovering around 123,000 residents. It's not huge by metropolitan standards, but it's not exactly a small town either. The presence of the University of Michigan, which enrolls roughly 50,000 students, infuses the city with a youthful energy and a fairly constant demand for housing. On top of that, Ann Arbor has become a hub for tech startups and research companies, particularly in the medical and engineering fields, which further drives interest and competition in both the rental and housing markets. As a result, the cost of living here is higher than many other parts of Michigan. And for newcomers, the first big question is often, should I rent a place until I settle in, or should I buy to build equity right away? Let's start by talking about renting in Ann Arbor. Over the past few years, local rents have trended upward, mirroring a national increase in rental costs. While rents can fluctuate, especially around the campus area, you can expect to find an average one-bedroom apartment around $1,300 to $1,500 per month, sometimes more if you're looking at high-demand neighborhoods like Carytown or areas close to the central campus. For a two-bedroom apartment, that figure can jump to anywhere between $1,600 and $2,200, depending on how new the building is, what amenities it offers, and exactly where it's situated in the city. If you want more space, those can easily exceed $2,500 or even $3,000 per month, especially in desirable neighborhoods such as Burns Park, which is popular for its walkability and proximity to top-rated schools. Renters in Ann Arbor also need to consider how seasonal demand can affect their search. Because the University of Michigan's academic calendar influences a significant portion of the housing turnover, there can be quite a bit of competition in late spring and early summer. That's when many students and faculty members are looking to move. And you might find that the best properties get snapped up quickly. If you're aiming to rent a place that's not oriented towards students, perhaps a house in a family-friendly neighborhood, you might find slightly less competition, but you'll also often find fewer available listings at any given time, which means you'll have to act quickly when a good option pops up. On the plus side, renting provides flexibility. Maybe you're unsure if Ann Arbor is going to be your long-term home, or maybe your job situation is still in flux. If you anticipate relocating again within a year or two, or if you simply want to try out the city before committing to home ownership, renting can make a lot of sense. It allows you to test different neighborhoods, figure out how you like the local culture, and potentially wait for more favorable market conditions if buying seems too expensive at the moment. Another advantage of renting is that you won't be on the hook for most maintenance or unexpected repairs. Generally, if something goes wrong, like an issue with plumbing or an appliance failing, it's your landlord's responsibility to fix it, unless the lease says otherwise. That can be a major relief if you're used to living in places where all costs are on you. Utilities may or may not be included in the rent, so be sure to read your lease carefully and budget for your own heating, electricity, water, and internet costs, which in Ann Arbor typically amount to around $150 to $300 per month, depending on the size of the unit and how many people live there. Now, let's shift to the buying side. Home values in Ann Arbor have historically trended above the Michigan average, partly because of high demand and limited land availability in prime areas near downtown and campus. The median home price in the broader Ann Arbor area often hovers around $400,000 to $420,000, though this can vary depending on the month, interest rates, and, of course, specific location. If you're looking at neighborhoods like Old West Side or Burns Park, you might see median prices closer to $500,000 or even higher. Meanwhile, some more suburban areas or condo developments might dip down into $300,000 range or lower. That said, even if you see a home listed at $300,000 in Ann Arbor, it's often quite competitive, and multiple offers can drive the final sale price above the listing figure. So why do people choose to buy in such a market? One major factor is equity. Every mortgage payment you make, once you subtract out interest, is building ownership in your property. Over the long term, say 5 to 10 years, home prices in Ann Arbor have tended to rise. Although the market experienced ups and downs during periods like the late 2000 recession. Even with these fluctuations, the general trend has been upward, with some neighborhoods seeing an average annual appreciation rate of around 3% to 5%. If you plan on staying in the area for an extended period, you might find that the money you would have spent on rent could instead be going toward building home equity, which you could later tap into if you decide to refinance or sell. Another appealing factor is control over the property. You can renovate the kitchen, paint the walls, or change the landscaping without needing permission from a landlord, which can be a huge draw for people who want a real sense of home. Of course, the downside to buying is the significant upfront cost and ongoing maintenance expenses. A typical down payment might be anywhere from 5% to 20% of the home's price, although loan options exist that can require less. Even at 10%, if you're looking at a $400,000 home, that's $40,000 needed up front, not counting closing costs, which can add another 2% to 3% of the purchase price. Then you have to factor in property taxes, which in Ann Arbor can be around 1.7% to 1.9% of the home's assessed value per year. Though it may be slightly more or less depending on the exact neighborhood and whether you're inside the city limits or in a township, homeowners insurance typically ranges from $800 to $1,400 annually, again, depending on the home size, location, and any special coverage riders you might need. Mortgage rates also influence the rent versus buy decision. Let's say current average 30-year fixed mortgage rates hover around 6.5% to 7%. A higher interest rate means higher monthly payments, which can sometimes make renting look more appealing in the short term, especially if rent prices haven't climbed at quite the same pace as mortgage rates. On a $350,000 mortgage at 6.5%, for example, your monthly principal and interest could be around $2,200. And once you add taxes and insurance, you might be looking at $2,500 or more each month. If you can find a comparable rental for $1,800 or $2,000 a month, and you plan to stay in that rental for only a year or two, renting might end up saving you money. On the other hand, if you're confident you'll be in Ann Arbor for at least 5 years, the monthly savings from renting might be overshadowed by the equity you'd build and the potential for the home's value to appreciate over that period. Local market trends in Ann Arbor can shift, though historically demand remains strong thanks to the constant influx of students, academics, medical professionals, and tech workers. The city's unemployment rate tends to be lower than Michigan's overall rate, and the presence of major employers like the University of Michigan, Michigan Medicine, Google, and numerous research labs creates a robust job market. This in turn can keep both rental and purchase demand high, though certain times of the year see more housing churn than others. If you're eyeing the possibility of buying during a season when fewer people are looking, you might snag a slightly better deal. But in recent years, such deals have been harder to come by, as inventory often remains limited and multiple buyers may compete for the same property. Another piece to consider is lifestyle preference. Some people love the idea of having a yard, garage, or basement workshop, which can be trickier to find in many rentals. Ann Arbor is known for its historic homes, some of which date back to the early 1900s. Buying one of these can be appealing from a character and charm perspective, but older houses often come with the need for frequent updates, so you'll want to factor in potential renovation or maintenance costs. If you're looking at newer developments, you'll find more modern layouts, sometimes including open concept kitchens, attached garages, and better energy efficiencies. But these properties can come at a premium, and many of them are located outside the downtown core. By contrast, if you rent, you might be able to live in the heart of downtown at a lower monthly cost than buying a condo in that area. Though you might have less space to work with or might deal with a noisier environment if you're close to bars and restaurants. Beyond the numbers, consider your personal timeline. If you're a student or someone in a temporary work contract, buying might not be the best move unless you plan to rent out the property or keep it as an investment later. If you're a professional who has got a job at a local tech company and expect to stay for the foreseeable future, buying might be more appealing. Many first-time homebuyers in Ann Arbor also look at the possibility of renting out a spare bedroom to help offset mortgage costs, especially if they're close to campus. This can be a viable strategy, but it comes with the responsibilities of being a landlord, so you'll want to carefully weigh whether you have the time and the interest for that. In recent years, we've seen a slight uptick in condo developments that cater to both downsizing retirees and young professionals who want to live near downtown but don't want the full responsibility of a single-family home. Condos in Ann Arbor can be found around $250,000 to $400,000 for a one or two bedroom, though prices for luxury units or newer high-rises can exceed $500,000. When you buy a condo, you'll also pay monthly association dues, often ranging from $200 to $500. These cover amenities like snow removal, landscaping, and sometimes utilities or a shared fitness center. These fees can significantly impact your monthly budget, so you'll need to factor that in when deciding if buying a condo is financially viable compared to renting an apartment of a similar size. One key point in choosing whether to rent or buy is conducting a rent versus own analysis that factors in not just the monthly mortgage, but also property taxes, insurance, potential maintenance, and association fees. Some people look at what's called the price-to-rent ratio, which is calculated by taking the median home price in an area and dividing it by the median annual rent. If the ratio is high, let's say over 20, it often indicates that renting might be more financially advantageous in the short term. If the ratio is lower, buying might look more appealing. As the last few years, Ann Arbor's price to rent ratio can fluctuate, but often stays in a range that suggests both renting and buying can be reasonable, depending on your own personal circumstances. That's because rents can be fairly high, which keeps the ratio in a zone where buying isn't necessarily out of the question, provided you have the necessary down payment and plan to stay put. You'll also want to keep in mind the transaction costs associated with buying and selling. If you purchase a home and then need to sell it a year later, you'll pay real estate agent commissions, commonly around 5% to 6% of the sale price, though this can be negotiable, and closing costs, which can be a substantial chunk of money you might not recoup if the home's value hasn't risen enough. Renting, by comparison, often only requires first month's rent, possibly last month's rent, a security deposit, and maybe some application fees. That's a far lower entry and exit cost than buying a property. This reality makes renting more appealing to those who aren't sure about how long they'll stay in Ann Arbor. But if you're confident you'll remain in the area for a solid stretch, you might be able to ride out any minor market dips and eventually come out ahead by building equity. Another factor is your personal finances. Lenders typically look for a credit score of 620 or higher to qualify for many mortgages, though better interest rates often go to those with scores above 740. They'll also look at your debt-to-income ratio, aiming for something under 43%. If you have student loans, car payments, or credit card debt, you'll need to factor those into the equation. Also, consider that home ownership isn't just about being able to make the monthly mortgage payment. You need a financial cushion for repairs and unexpected issues. In older Ann Arbor homes, it's not uncommon to face costs like replacing a roof, $5,000 to $10,000, fixing an aging furnace, $2,000 to $4,000, or dealing with plumbing and electrical upgrades, which can each run into the thousands. Renters, on the other hand, can avoid most of these expenses, though some landlords might pass on the small maintenance costs or set up the lease so that the certain repairs are partially the tenant's responsibility. Ultimately, the decision between renting and buying in Ann Arbor boils down to your own financial stability, your long-term plans, your tolerance for home maintenance, and how quickly you want to start building equity. If you're a recent grad or a young professional who anticipates possibly moving again for career reasons, renting can give you the breathing room you need. If you have a family and want to settle down in one of Ann Arbor's excellent school districts like Burns Park Elementary, Eberwhite, or Angel, buying can offer you the stability and the chance to own in a district that's often ranked among the best in the state. Also, if you're someone who craves the freedom to renovate, garden, or even keep certain types of pets, owning might just fit your lifestyle more naturally. Keep in mind that the numbers we've discussed rent ranges from $1,300 to $2,200 for apartments, average home prices around $400,000, mortgage rates in the 6.5 to 7% range are all subject to change based on the broader economy and local supply and demand. It's always wise to consult with a local real estate agent, lender, or financial advisor to get the most accurate and up-to-date figures for your situation. You might also consider comparing at least 3 or 4 mortgage offers if you decide to buy, as each lender can offer slightly different rates and closing cost structures, which can save you thousands over the life of your loan. In the end, only you can decide what makes the most sense for your circumstances. Ann Arbor is a wonderful city with a lot to offer in terms of cultural events, job opportunities, parks, and educational institutions. Whether you're renting a cozy apartment near Main Street so you can walk to the coffee shops and restaurants, or buying a charming home in a quieter neighborhood with tree-lined streets, the important thing is that you feel comfortable and financially secure in your choice. There isn't a right or wrong answer. There's only what's right for your life stage, budget, and personal preferences. If you do your research, weigh the pros and cons carefully, and trust your gut. You'll likely make a decision you can feel good about in this ever-evolving real estate market. Thanks for sticking with me through this breakdown. If you found all of this information helpful, don't forget to drop a like or a comment with any follow-up questions. I love hearing about your experiences and concerns as you navigate the Ann Arbor market. Wishing you all the best in your housing journey, and I hope you'll find the perfect spot to call home, whether that's a rental or a property with your name on the deed. Take care and happy house hunting.